10.0 coaching here with a special MVP episode. Today we have my man, Dr. Dre from the Real Reels Academy. And we're going to go deep on social media in terms of how to create thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views on your social media. My man Andreas has generated some of the fucking wickedest, coolest brands that I've seen on social media. So we're going to unpack that today. As always, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel and then sit down, take some notes. This is my number one thing from this is there's going to be some absolute gold in this. I've been here with these guys most of this week now. From what I've seen, the amount it's improved my content already and my understanding of social media. If you're not taking notes, yeah, you're fooling yourself. So let's get it. All right, brother. How you going, man?
Good, good. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, cool. Introduce yourself, man. Who are you? Where you from? What do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Andres, or some people call me Dre. Kind of been living all over the world the past few years from Arizona originally.
Yeah.
Moved to Florida about a year and a half ago, and now I'm in New Jersey a few weeks now, and I'll be here for who knows how long.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I a tiny bit of background. Like I went to university, I did nutrition and restaurant management. Thought I was going to like work in a hospital, help people with their health.
Yeah.
I still love health, but wasn't really the path at the time. Wanted to do something entrepreneurial. Tried a bunch of different things. Stumbled upon video editing really by accident in university, and then fast forward a bit, got into personal training with ATG, Ben Patrick,
Yeah.
and then there was a big need in there for social media content. And Keegan Smith, both of our friends and mentors,
Yeah.
kind of told me like, yo, you can actually pursue this as a way to make money. I was basically making no money at the time, and just living off of a little bit of savings.
Yeah.
And yeah, helped some guys out. Quickly went from a little free consultation thing I was doing to like getting paid a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just snowballed from there over the past almost 3 years now.
Yeah. Wicked.
And then almost a year ago, kind of really got serious with it,
Yeah.
helping probably over 15, 20 brands now with videos and growing viral and things like that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like I said, moved to New Jersey. So I'm here with, as many of you guys know, probably Justin Mucci and then Aiden Gates and Nick Daza. We're all living together, training together, building business together. And it's amazing. It's a great spot. It is getting pretty cold here, but it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And before we sort of dive into what we're going, like from what I've seen today is like environments is everything, and to see what you guys are doing, like the four of you, as you said, living together, working together, training together, and probably more importantly, like pushing each other to be elite
Mhm.
is phenomenal, man. Like what sort of impact has that had on you?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate enough to live in like a few pockets of
Yeah.
groups like this in the past in Florida and now here, and then even in Arizona when I was in university. It was a pretty impactful growth mindset group of friends.
Yeah.
And it's like every time you learn something new, you're around people that maybe, at least in my experience initially, it's like you don't fit in because they're different, but they're in a growth direction, but it's not the direction you've been in. So you like
Sure.
learn, and there's a bit of friction, and
Yeah.
with friction, there's always like growth and new
Yeah.
stimulus for the mind and the body. So the impact's been insane. I mean, if I didn't find these groups, like I was doing construction for a bit,
Yeah.
probably still be doing construction. I do love construction to be fair, but yeah, probably still be in that path. Yeah, not an entrepreneur at all for sure.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. Cool. So, man, like, so now that you've sort of created the Real Reels Academy,
Mhm.
like, so what does that look like in the brands that you've worked with? Maybe can you like unpack a little bit about, we sort of start with someone, and then how you sort of build these brands, and maybe just give a couple examples of the brands you're working with as well.
Yeah, yeah. So initially, I started with just video editing.
Yeah.
Keegan Smith would always he knew I was good at video editing, but he was like, "Dude, you're doing so much more than just video editing. Like,
Yeah.
you're helping people with brands and
Yeah.
confidence in front of the camera and all these things."
Yeah.
So initially, with just video editing, someone would send me footage, I would do my thing, and I would send it back.
Cool.
But over the last year, it's evolved into more like right now with the clients that I work with online. When it's a one-on-one client, me doing the videos for them, we get on a call once per week. We kind of break down a lot of the times like what they're struggling with. If they're
Yep.
still like dealing with a lot of confidence issues or just certainty issues of like, am I doing the right thing? Am I filming the right thing?
Yeah.
And then all of the technical stuff as well that all plays a role. Like, how do you film better? How do you speak better?
Yeah.
And then probably the biggest thing that we've seen with the brands is developing like what it is they talk about. I think the big reason why a lot of people don't succeed on social media is they're kind of just reinventing the wheel of their brand like every week. Like they're like,
Yeah.
oh, last week wasn't good, so I'm gonna do something entirely new, hoping that's something new. And
Yep.
there's power in that,
Yep.
but I think sometimes it's overdone. So a lot of it's just like keeping people accountable
Yep.
and consistent in the direction they're going, even if they're only seeing a little bit of success in that short term. Like it's
Yep.
pushing them beyond that, couple weeks of like, I don't know if it's going to work to actually get something rolling.
For sure. So maybe if we start with like, you sort of newer people to the social media game,
Mm,
obviously haven't seen too much success. Like, I guess the things that have come up, like in terms of imposter syndrome, don't want to be on camera, and
mm,
like you said, like chopping and changing every single week. Like, what have you found in that case that does help them win faster, but
mm.
also like allows them to understand the process faster?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of these answers are not the most sexy answers. People are
Yep.
going to be listening. It's like, oh, of course he said that or whatever. But it's going to be the consistency and the doing, but also
Consistency with what?
consistency with, it sounds so stupid, consistency with doing anything.
Okay.
Because most are just like, I'll hear someone say like, "Oh, I posted 3 times last week and like it didn't do well." It's
Mhm.
like, okay, did you post this week? It's like, nah.
Yep.
Like, obviously there's more than we can do than
No,
just
gotcha.
posting,
Yeah.
but like that's kind of, we can't get data of what's working and not working if like absolutely nothing's being put out. So that's kind
And
of
so that data is like the most important thing.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like we've seen with Justin, Justin's been one of my best friends and clients
Yeah.
here with Real Reels for like a year now.
Mhm.
And after we got enough data, like 30 to 50 reels, we clearly saw like hips and low back were outperforming everything else.
Mhm.
And then not only did that have an influence on content, but it even had an influence on the brand and offer and product as a whole,
Yeah.
where the whole locked in athletes went from like, we're doing everything to hips and low back is like the engine of the athlete. So content can even play a role in not just, making content for the sake of growing content, but for the sake of evolving the offer and product that you have.
Man, that's a pretty yeah, that's a great insight because like a lot of people, I guess when they're starting, especially like, oh, I have to create content.
Mm,
They're like, oh, I've got my product, I know how I coach, but
mm,
that there is actually telling you what the audience wants. Is that what you're
exactly.
sort of saying there?
Yeah, yeah, and it's not as easy as a beginner, of course, because if you
Yeah.
only have 100 followers, you're maybe only getting like 3, 4, 5 data points.
Yeah.
But if you already have like 1, 2, 3K, that's enough to put things on your story, ask questions,
Yeah.
be in the DMs,
Yeah.
and dogs go a bit nuts in the background, and just kind of use that as like a way of gauging what the audience needs and wants. And
Okay.
I've seen it happen before. Like one of my clients was making just sort of general ATG content.
Hmm.
He's an ex baseball player, and his throwing videos were outperforming everything else because you could see in the way that he spoke, he was more passionate about throwing, and that evolved his offer entirely
Yeah.
into I help people throw with XYZ
Yeah.
training methods. And then to your question, back more to the beginner thing, I got some notes down here. Okay, so finding what's most sustainable for you to be consistent is extremely important. So a lot of people will think, like, especially they'll see Justin's content that's very, very high caliber production quality.
Yeah.
He's speaking while doing a heavy split squat, while pointing at his ankle,
Yeah.
while having, hiring a guy to film him while mic'd up and then nice lighting. It's a lot going on. And
Yeah.
if you've only ever made like 5 pieces of content, you see that and you think it's impossible.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of tiers. And I don't even want to say it in like a 0 to 100 level. There's a lot of tiers in a million different directions. You can speak with the camera, you can voice over, you can never speak. You can build a successful brand without ever showing your face
Yeah.
and never speaking. Doesn't mean you have to. It doesn't mean it's better or worse. It
Yeah.
just means that it's an option. So whatever's most sustainable for you, find what that is. If you're terrified of standing in front of the camera, can you push yourself past it to get in front of the camera? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you need to? No. Whatever it takes to find that lowest barrier of entry,
Yeah.
do that. And that goes not just for the filming, it goes for the scripting, it goes for the editing. You might, again, see a high-end edited video like Gary Vee or Alex Formosi and think like, I can't hire an editor to do that.
For sure.
Like, you don't need it. Like, use an AI generator thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, some words might be spelled wrong. They might not be the most beautiful captions, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
It gets it done.
It gets the job done. So lowest barrier of entry, and
Yeah.
that really does go for everything. It goes even for posting volume. Justin's posting 40 times a month.
Yeah.
Post 10 times a month. Whatever the lowest barrier is. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, like, big things there obviously like that consistency and then finding what you can be consistent with. Is there certain things that you find over time seems to be a consistent thing that wins?
Mm,
Or is it more like there's consistent traits about a person? So say for example, is it like, high energy? Is it, quiet spoken? What
mm.
sort of have you found that's consistently working?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting topic that I think goes even beyond just content and
Yeah.
more into life.
Yeah.
Not that we'll go all the way there, but like Keegan's talked a lot about like mechanics versus energy. We've talked a lot about mechanics versus energy here
Yep.
at the house. And I think that plays a role in content when it comes to the energy behind it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a high or low energy. It has
Yep.
to just be whatever your most, maybe you could call it authentic or whatever it is energy is. Like if you're a more introverted, straight to the point person that's not going to joke around,
Yeah.
like putting that forth through your content and not trying to fake something else is going to resonate. People that are similar to you are going to see that shining through. And that sort of contrasts all the mechanics being the edit, the music choice, the lighting, the camera quality. Those are all still important
Yeah.
and they play a role, but I've seen many brands grow quite successfully with the mechanics being pretty dead or par or average,
Mhm.
but the energy being clearly at the maximal capacity. An example of this would be Barefoot Sprinter, Graham
Yep.
Tuttle. To this day, I've never spoken to him personally, but to this day, his edits are like, I'm assuming, he can afford an editor. I'm assuming like he's got, 400, 500K, like he can afford these things.
Yeah.
And his edits are like, dude, like they're not very good. Yeah. But his energy is clearly
Yeah.
running at 100% with every single video. So, with the question you had of like what sort of what things like continue to pop up that lead to success, I really think it's the energy,
Okay.
100%.
Yep.
Like Justin's energy, for anyone that knows him in person,
Yep.
it's coming out in his content like more and more each month and week.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be like him. Like my
Gotcha. Gotcha.
personality is like pretty
Gotcha.
different.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So,
Yeah.
like, it's almost a case of like the more you become you and able to express you,
Mhm.
that seems to like catch fire a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think
Yeah. Gotcha.
another idea with that is like making content is more about removing what you would call like handbrakes
Gotcha.
with your clients.
Yeah.
It's the handbrakes might be like, I don't know how to use a camera, I don't know how to edit, I don't know how to speak. Like the more you can remove those things, the more you can actually come out. Because if you're
Yeah.
listening to this, like you might already be a pretty veteran coach that's helped 100 people. So clearly you have the skills to do what you do, whether it's
Yeah.
weight loss or athletic performance, but there's clearly roadblocks in your way, handbrakes being pulled that are preventing the authentic you from, reaching 10,000 people instead of 10.
Gotcha, man. And so, like, with that, like, I think something that people always get stuck with is like the feeling of like I have to do this because that's what everyone's doing.
Mhm,
How do you sort of like maybe guide someone to figure out who they are and
mhm,
their message versus like, oh look, everybody's talking about calorie deficit. That's
mhm.
what I got to do. What do you sort of do there?
Yeah, so I think there's like two parts to that. There's the everyone's talking about, so the topic
Yeah.
side, and then everyone is filming or producing in this certain way. I think that's like the two things that people tend to copy
Yeah.
or want to avoid the copy. It's the topic and then the style in which they
Sure.
deliver it.
Yeah.
I think there's value in both. So
Sure.
like you can
Yeah.
explore doing the opposite work in the calorie example, like everyone's talking about
Hmm.
calories in, calories out.
Hmm.
I'm going to provide a hormonal approach to weight loss.
For sure.
And then everyone's speaking to the camera. I'm going to decide to write more and then be more autistic or whatever.
Yeah.
You can, do that, or I think there's equal value in copying people. There's Matthew Scar Performance. When he grew from essentially zero to like 140K in legit like 3 weeks,
Yeah.
he copied Ben, like his font, his even borderline speaking style, his filming style, and obviously the exercises.
Yeah.
He just copied it and it blew him up. And it's like I think Chris Williams said this on a podcast. It's like everyone cares about, no one cares about how you got somewhere. Everyone cares about that you got to that point.
For sure.
So like how you get to 140K or whatever it is, like who really cares? Now you can speak to 140,000 people instead of 500. So I think there's value in both. To answer the question, it's like if you see everyone go in one direction and you feel a calling to do the opposite, to kind of go against the grain, and you can create friction with the online community, you
Yeah.
can do that. If you feel lost and you're like, I don't know what to talk about, but my values align with these three creators, feel free to some degree copy the three. you
Yeah.
can reach out to the three, gain, feedback for sure.
That's wicked, man. And so, like, let's take the copying. Like, what sort of things are you looking at? Say for someone looks at a piece of content, they have no idea what they're looking at.
Mm,
Like, what would you sort of be like? Hey, I'm going to go and copy Ben Patrick. Cool. What would I be looking for to know that that's what I need to copy,
mm.
rather than like, hey, I'm just going to do a split squat and hope for the best.
Gotcha. So you're asking kind of like what attributes of a video am I looking to?
100%. So, like,
Yeah.
probably like what makes a good video,
Mm.
and then how do you spot what's making a good video?
Yeah. I think a lot of it, if you think of it from the perspective of Instagram as a company's goal, is
Yep.
to just keep people on the app as long as possible by any
sure.
means necessary, whether it's with high quality content or like brain rot, stupid content. It doesn't matter. That's the goal of that app.
Yeah.
So thinking from that perspective, what draws people in to listen to videos? I think it's a lot about like digestibility of information.
Cool.
So you also have to know who you're speaking to. So if you're speaking to, like in your case, a more executive crowd, you can probably use a little bit more complex language, business language, etc. But if
Yeah.
your clientele was like elementary school baseball players, like it's going to be different because you're speaking to the parents. So understand who you're speaking to. And once you understand that, figure out what's going to be most digestible for them. If it's an older crowd, they're probably going to want more details because they're going to be skeptical about everything. If it's a younger crowd, it's what's going to be digestible for young people is going to be like good music. It's going to be, flashy edits, potentially things like that.
Yeah.
But in a more general sense, if you look at, Ben is one of the, I'd say, best, most clear creators out there.
Yeah.
His angles are really, really just to the point, like they show what needs to be shown and nothing extra. Like he doesn't make a video longer than it needs to be. He needed 50 seconds to explain a thing. 49 wouldn't have been enough. 51 would have been too much. And that's one part. But in terms of actually copying, because I think that is something, especially for beginners, can pull a lot of value from is like copying how they speak, the text, whatever.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is audio quality and video angles. I think one of my friends, Josh, said like people can handle bad video quality, but they can't handle bad audio quality. Which is kind of true, especially if you have headphones in.
Yeah.
So make audio quality a pretty solid priority.
Yeah.
If it's just blowing up your eardrums, like no one wants to listen. And then the angles too, like dissect the video apart as best you can. A lot of these edits are a lot simpler to make than one might think. Like you might see someone who took 3 angles of their ankle to show something. It's not that difficult, right? Like you put the camera up, you hit record for 10 seconds, new angle, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
In the edit you put together. And as basic as this sounds, like try your best. It's not going to be the same. You're going to try to copy Ben. You're going to become 30% as good in the video.
Yeah.
The next one will be 35. And that's just kind of the process of it. Yeah.
That's sick, man. So, like, let's say for all the ADD listeners out there that are like, I'm looking at a video, then I scroll. I'm looking at a video, then I scroll.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you were sitting down, man, and just pretend you're not where you are now. Okay, so go back a couple of years and like with the process so that you can get zoned in, would you sort of, sit down and look at it, write some notes, go and try it? What would you sort of recommend to delete that ADD sort of?
Gotcha. So like how I would go down, like
For sure.
breaking down a video.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few ways you can do it. Like the way I have actually done it in the past is when I started I did some training content of my own like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I copied Ben's font by downloading his video and trying every single font in my computer until one of them matched.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Yeah, cool.
In terms of like angles, I mean, if you're a more handwriting sort of person, just write down the different angles for. We're talking about Ben a lot. Like,
Gotcha.
If you were to copy a Ben video, maybe there's probably 3 to 5 angles. So just write down like, okay, he did a split squat, he did a deficit plyo jump, whatever, and then just copy them to the best of your ability with the angle. And again, it's not going to look perfect, but it's a start. And then when it comes to editing, the way I started with editing, I didn't learn from any like school or even YouTube channel. It was just trial and error. So the best way to do it is to dump all of your footage into what I use as CapCut. Just dump it all in and then play around with it. What will probably be best is actually downloading the video that you're trying to mimic. Yeah. Place that into CapCut as well. And then you can kind of just compare and contrast side by side.
Yeah, so like in your service, you do this for everyone anyway.
Yeah.
Fucking gold.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's it. So let's just go from, man, like, let's say you're a veteran coach, amateur, sort of content creator, and then let's go to sort of like maybe like a bit more experienced sort of person, and let's roll through that.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the biggest things I would say when you already are a veteran coach is that you have a lot of the data that a
Yep.
new coach just simply doesn't have. So a new coach can find a lot of success by trying a lot of new things pretty frequently. Still
Yeah.
want to be consistent, of course.
Cool.
But with a veteran coach, you already have that data. Whether the data comes from uh, in-person clients that you currently have or have had,
When you say data, what are we looking for?
yeah, data. So that would mainly be like who you train,
Yeah.
what their problems are,
Yeah.
what solutions they're looking for, things like
Just to
that.
unpack that, because I know
Yeah, yeah,
people struggle with this a lot.
yeah.
So, like we talked about before in regards to like the language, what do they speak, what do they say?
Mhm.
And so coaches are like, I know about this. That's what I know.
Yeah, yeah.
So like and generally the way I'll sort of speak about this is like, what results are you getting for your clients? But when you're looking for things to pick up in terms of, the stuff you're doing in person. So is it like you're looking for like a problem you're helping with? What are you sort of looking there?
Yeah.
And then how do you transfer that to actual like 30 seconds of content?
Yeah, yeah. So we can use an example for this. I'm assuming most people listening to this are familiar with obviously the basics. Squats, split
Yep,
squat, I know well, and split squats obviously help a lot of people with the sorts of things.
for sure.
So for a guy like there's my client Justin, there's my client Riley,
Mhm.
and then I've got another client Stephen who helps elderly people like 55 plus.
Yeah,
They're all gonna discuss a split squat in very different contexts. For the
cool.
older person, it's gonna be you can play with your grandkids more when you drop your keys. You don't need to break your back to, get it off the ground. For Justin, it's gonna be football, get into lower positions comfortably and strong,
Yeah,
unilateral imbalancement, whatever. And then with Riley, baseball player, thrower guy, it's all going to be probably about like fascial lines across the front, etc.
yeah.
So when you're already a veteran coach and you have what we're referring to broadly as data,
Mhm.
it's what people are struggling with. If you're a weight loss person or a weight loss coach, and then the pain points are maybe not looking as good as you used to for your spouse. So you can
Yeah.
speak on that issue. It's like if you're tired of your spouse doubting whatever, you can play it off in a bunch of different ways. Like that's somewhere you can start. Um, but that's also going to evolve. So it's being a veteran coach isn't going to give you all of the answers, but it's going to give you a direction to start in. So based on who you've already helped and who you've had the most success with helping, you can go off in that direction. And I've heard many people say this, like write the book you're qualified to write. And as a veteran coach, you're already qualified to write a book of whatever it is that you do. And then the same thing is going to be true with the content.
So let's say, take that, man. Like, let's say you've coached 5 back-to-back sessions in person.
Mm.
Now, how would you go and take some of that and create ideas or topics, and then take that and turn it into like a reel that actually produces good content?
Yeah. So the simplest way is probably just writing down, as on most websites, like frequently asked questions, like the Q&A sort of thing. Same exact idea. It's like
Yep.
you have 5 clients, 3 of them are still dealing with low back pain from sitting at their office too long. They
Yep.
work a 9 to 5, and they're a single parent and they have children. Let's say it's that, right? Very specific.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you can dissect or take that apart with, a super simple possibility that I've seen used as ads. Like, are you a single mom with low back pain? Listen to me.
Yeah.
And it's super direct, but it does work. You can get more creative than that. You can say, like, are you tired of your kids climbing on your back after a long day's work? Whatever.
Cool.
That's what I would do. I mean, just the one thing I've struggled with, to be honest, in my business is how much needs to be turned into like an actual system versus how much can just be developed organically with enough experience. I tend to lean a little bit more that way. Not that that's like the answer, but in this example, if you know your clients well enough and if you've like digested and understood their problems enough,
Yeah.
then you'll sort of know what the answers are without even really need to think. Of course, the question now is like, how do you turn that into content?
For sure, for sure. And
Yeah.
so, like, I think to go a couple layers deeper, and it's something that I did see Justin do the other day, is he would sort of like start to like talk, and he'd be like, "They don't care about that," or it's like
Yeah.
he'd say something, and then he'd say it again, but he's removed the word.
Yep.
So what is going on there, and like why is he doing that, and how can that be applied?
So one thing Justin does specifically, as far as I understand, is he in his head plays a
He's
role
literally
as
like,
speaking to.
it's like he's having a little conversation.
Yeah, well, he's having like a conversation with himself, but also a conversation with like an imaginary client image.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
that's huge.
Yeah.
I've seen this time and time again with many coaches that are amazing in person, but they're still struggling with online content. Is when I'm with them in person, like I knew, was with a guy in Portugal who's like an animal flow sort of guy,
Yeah.
and he's when the camera's on, like it's a different persona coming
Mm.
out, but when he's speaking to me, he's like energized, he's jumping, he's throwing things around.
Yeah.
So trying your best to just recognize when you're in that sort of flow state with a client in person and then
Yeah.
try your best to speak that way into the camera.
Potentially like a strategy here, and like, so the way I'm visualizing it in my head is like you almost got a picture like you got a little hologram,
Mhm.
and it's like you're just trying to visualize like you're just having a conversation with that client.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I guess maybe when one would maybe a potential good strategy is like just film yourself like when
Mhm.
you're coaching. Doesn't have to be the content, but it's like, oh, how am I interacting with that person? And then just like when you go and create the content, you just pretend that person's still there. Like you're
Yeah,
literally having the same conversation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so that's a good technique to use. Another one that is a really, I mean, if you have 20 minutes, you can do this at home.
Yep.
It's really uncomfortable to do, but it's good practice. So what you would do is you set up your camera just on a tripod. You don't even need one. You can lean your phone up against the wall,
Yeah.
and you come up with a topic, weight loss, whatever, and you just decide I'm going to speak about this as
Yeah.
if it were content for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You do that, and then what you do is you watch yourself fit on the video with the audio muted
Yeah.
to see what you look like.
Yeah.
Then you listen to yourself with your eyes closed, and you're going to hear all the ums and the likes and
Yeah.
the insecurities come out.
Cool.
And then you watch yourself and listen to yourself. And it's difficult to do all three because you're just like cringing the whole time. You're like, this is shit. But if doing that like once a month is extremely powerful. That's not something Justin has done. It's kind of happened naturally with like the 300 plus reels we've made at this point.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a technique to use. And I think I want to bring kind of a more general point to this. It's like a lot of these techniques, and again, this is very basic, boring advice, but all these techniques are going to work. The technique I just described is going to work.
Yeah.
Making 100 reels in a month is going to work.
Yeah.
Recording your Zoom calls with clients is going to work. Like it's
Yeah.
all, and watching them back. Like all of these techniques are going to work. It's just about sticking to any one of them for long enough. It's almost like diets. Like most diets are going to get people weight loss results.
Yeah.
It's just about doing that.
Yeah. So like when you sort of like, let's say a new client comes into work with you, bro. It's
Mhm.
like, all right, this first thing you sort of be like, all right, what are we trying to do? And then it's like, here's what the first 30 days looks like. What does that look like?
Yeah. So typically we'll kind of start where they're already at, meaning they're already probably producing some level of content.
For sure.
We're going to just start with fixing the basics of whatever was wrong with what they're doing. I'm speaking to one guy now who might be hopping on board, and like immediately it'd be like, we're going to cut your edits a lot sooner. So, like, basically, he doesn't start speaking until like 5 seconds into the video. That's a huge, huge, huge flag. It's like no one's going to watch your content
Yeah.
if you don't say a word until 5 seconds. So, like,
Yeah.
that's a tiny thing, but that's like step one. And it's like, okay, the lighting's not good. We're going to fix the lighting.
Gotcha.
You're speaking with like no confidence. We're
Yeah.
going to like get on a call. We're going to get you hyped up, and then we're going to practice some of those lines. Your scripts are too long. Send over the script. Let's condense that thing down. So
Cool.
the process is kind of a mixture of like an organic process, but also a bit systematized.
Yeah.
Organic in every person's going to struggle with their own thing,
Yeah.
and then systematized, like we're going to just check one box off at a time. It's going to be the lighting, the speaking, the editing,
Yeah.
the props, the location, the camera, whatever. All are going to sort of be checked out.
So it's almost like a triangle type thing where it's like their energy, what energy are they going to bring? Then you got the mechanical, and then it's like scripting of like what the content actually is type thing.
Yeah, yeah, and the scripting, the content is kind of bridges that gap between the mechanical and the energetic.
Yeah.
Because you can be all energized, but if you have no content, then it doesn't matter. And then the vice versa is true. It's like you can make content but with zero energy. So yeah, the scripting, the filming, etc., kind of bridges that gap between the energy and the mechanics.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, I keep saying this, but like it's boring advice, but it's really just those 1% wins all the way.
Yeah,
And that's like how every content. I mean, that's even how my editing developed. Like I recently reposted the first video I ever made. So 6 years ago, it was absolute garbage. It was so bad. And all it took was like tiny 1% improvements over like 2,000 pieces of content made since then. And that's the answer is the 1%. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Something I want to look at. So I'm going to throw out a couple examples, but so one I would love to unpack. There's probably three I'll unpack, but let's say, for example, so you got Mr. Nick Gazin,
Mm,
so he sort of like added, I think, 5 or 6 thousand people to his following in the last few months.
yeah.
Cool. What was sort of the process? Because he's sort of like about 10,000 followers now, so
Mm,
like still at the early stages of blowing up, I
yeah, yeah.
guess. What was the processes and the changes that like he implemented to make it sort of go to where he is now?
Yeah, so I've only been I think I started working with Nick, like, midway through that growth period,
Yeah.
but the big change I saw, was really more on the mechanical side. There's definitely some energetic improvements as well, but the mechanical just got better.
Yeah.
The filming quality, especially
Yeah.
him coming to this gym now,
Yeah.
and the edit quality, that was probably a big one as well. Like, I
Cool.
think he used to use this is all very mechanical, but he used to use, like, the AI captions, which in my eyes are, like, so cookie cutter. We'll get the job done. Like, don't worry about them if that's a huge thing for you to improve,
Yeah.
but he like changed them to much more customized looking captions.
Yeah. Yeah.
The edits became a lot cleaner. He took one of my editing courses, and he's faster at editing, but he's also like a lot cleaner with it, getting rid of any fluff.
Yeah.
Making if the video needs to be 30 seconds, making it 30 seconds.
Yeah. No.
And so I'd say, like I said, mostly it's been on the mechanical side, and then the energy just being here in this gym with us, with Justin, with him doing his Sunday filming sessions.
Yeah.
That's had a huge improvement. So what that means for you listening is probably getting around other people that are making content, or
Yeah.
more than likely, you're probably around people that want to make content. It's
Yeah.
going to be less likely that you're going to be around someone that's like absolutely killing it with the content. So if you can find someone who's like also, been telling themselves, I need to get on social media for
Yeah.
3 years now, get with them and be like, okay, let's do something together. And
Yeah.
that's even true. And that's been true here. And it's probably helped McDoes as well, is just having other people to
Yeah.
film with,
Yeah.
to bounce ideas off of, and even move the camera for. Like,
Yeah.
do some shots where it's like, hey man, I've seen you bouncing back and forth from the tripod 70 times tonight. You want me to hold the camera for you? Like, that makes a huge help and boosts the confidence and the
Yeah.
efficiency. Yeah, yeah.
That's fucking sick. So then on the flip side, Mr. Mucci, like close to a couple 100,000 now.
It's like 170 something. Yeah.
Yeah, sick. And so the goal to get to 1 million,
Mhm.
what's the difference?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's something we've been talking about a little bit. So,
Yeah.
I would say what got him from we started at like 2K, and now it's like 170. What got him from 2 to 170 was virality of like content. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of it. I mean, sure, he's had, of course, like amazing transformations for teams and individuals.
Yeah.
He's worked with pro athletes,
Yeah.
but it's really been the viral stuff. To get from 170 to a million, we can't get there by just getting more viral videos. Like,
Yeah.
viral videos will get us from 170 to 172 to 173,
Cool.
whatever. I think it's going to have to be a huge, not necessarily a shift, but like a jump in either who he is as a coach and person and athlete,
Yeah.
or who and at what caliber he's training other people. So he's recently
Yeah.
going to be working with some more high schools. So if he has like a huge impact on like 100 local high schools, or even 100 like national high schools,
Yeah.
like, that's going to be the sort of thing that's going to get him on podcasts. It's going to get him on
Stages, man.
stations, things like
Stage
that.
is the key. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So it's going to be a huge,
Yeah.
like, we can't fully predict what it's going to be. It's going to the role the content's going to play from 170 to a million is documenting his, like, essentially character development. It's not going to be that we're not going to get a better camera.
Yeah.
We're not going to, what the edits aren't going to get much fancier. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just capturing it. And that kind of brings me to another small side point is most of you listening have probably done amazing things with your clients and for yourself as an athlete in the past, but it's not documented.
Yeah.
So no one can know it. So
Yeah.
eliminating the barriers again, whether it's
Yeah.
doing it yourself, hiring a videographer to follow you, like a lot of these millionaires have like
Yeah.
full-time videographers following them. Like, that's such a high leverage tool to have to just document the amazing things you're already doing, because otherwise no one knows what they are.
Yeah, that's wicked, man. It's sort of crazy, isn't it? Like, I think Justin said the other day, he's like, we can keep doing what we're doing, we'll get there.
Yeah.
It's like cool, but he's like, look at just how fast.
Yeah.
And I think like what you said there, it's like it's more go for the impact rather than the virality now.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
it's like, is that a case of like going for quality of audience versus just any audience, or is it we don't quite?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more quality of impact. I guess it depends what you mean by like quality of audience.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
like high quality audience could be like, I only work with NFL players now.
For sure.
That could be it.
Yeah.
Or it could be I only work with middle schoolers, but the impact can be equally
As
impactful
yeah,
in
yeah, for
both,
sure,
right?
for sure.
So I think it's the quality and like quantity of impact
Yeah,
in whatever he chooses. Maybe he decides I'm going to be the youth athlete guy forever, and I'm
yeah,
going to have all the high schoolers break every world record, and there never was. And that would be the impact necessary.
for sure.
Or he goes to the NFL and he drops their injury rates from whatever they are now to a third what they are.
Yeah,
Something like that. Like
just big vision, big mission, which is cool.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
love that, man. And something else I guess that would be relatively interesting is like, so in terms of virality,
Mm,
like how does that happen?
yeah, yeah. It's a great question. A lot of it, people will talk about the algorithm all the time. And the thing is, if you look, this is my own opinion. A lot of people will disagree. If anyone tells you that the algorithm definitively does or doesn't do X, Y, Z, they're talking out of their ass.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
no one knows.
Yeah,
I think what's always going to be true is, like I said before, Instagram as a company and as an app's goal is to keep people on the app as long as possible.
for
And
sure.
that's why a lot of those really stupid videos of like a car crash or whatever it is
Yeah,
do really well because people are addicted to watching that sort of stuff.
yeah,
So playing into that, has its pros and cons. You don't want to, at least most people don't want to build a brand that's purely based off of just like stupidness.
yeah,
But you can still play into it. Maybe that's like acting a little bit in front of the camera. For Justin, for example, kind of what helped things go viral was back to that energy thing.
yeah.
Justin is a very extroverted, very loud, very New Jersey type of guy. And more of that coming out in the content helped him get more and more millions of views. So whatever that equivalent is for you, um, yeah, just showing whatever it is fully authentically. Maybe you coach like, middle school basketball and
Yeah.
like showing the energy of middle school basketball practice as best you can. It's going to give you the best chance of going viral. But if you're only just showing, standing in front of the camera, all right, guys, today we're doing wall drilling.
Cool. Gotcha, man. So like let's pretend like edits are good,
Mm,
like energy is good. How do you know when it's not working?
mm. As in like what or why it's not working.
Well, how do you know like you're looking at your content and it's like, let's say you got 2,000 views, whatever, and it's like no saves, no shares. How do you know when it's not working in terms of like moving your brand forward?
Gotcha. I think a big part of that is like setting a time frame
Yeah.
to stick to.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to bring up before with beginners is like building out a plan. Even if you don't think the plan is perfect, sticking to that plan for a
Yeah, yeah.
designated period of time, 2, 4, 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So to find out when it's not working, if it's not working, I think you really have to sort of set metrics for yourself. There's a bunch of ways you can do this. Easiest one that comes to mind would be like, let's say you've been averaging 1,000 views on the average video forever.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, this month I'm going to put out 20 reels. If they're not averaging 2,000 views, then something's wrong. Whatever that means to you, or you want to be more ambitious. If
Yep.
they're not averaging 5,000 views,
Yep.
something's going wrong. So it's going to be a lot of it's going to be subjective because it might also. I think you were mentioning this before, like a few days ago. Like it's not all has to do with views. You might get 300 views, but your content got you 18 new clients. So then it's like,
For sure.
what really matters more in that sort of position. So
Yeah.
whatever you're shooting for, like maybe you're someone who already has income, but for the status reason or whatever, you want 10,000 followers. Or you're on the flip side. You have 10,000 followers, but you have no clients.
Yeah.
Then that's going to be your metric.
I'm a big believer, man, and like the bigger the audience, the bigger the brand. As long as the brand is strong,
Mhm,
then it's like the bigger the better,
mhm,
for my opinion. And it's like, but then it's also like monetizing a brand is completely different.
mhm.
I know heaps of people that have lots of followers got no money,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I know like I know people with 400, 500 followers making lots of money,
Yeah.
which is crazy. And so even a good example, Alex Hormozy talked about, there was a lady, she got 5,000 followers, and I think like her top post has 20 likes, and she's
Mm.
making over $1 million a year. Like just
Yeah, yeah.
20 likes.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, but her content was so direct, so like precise for that niche that it
Mm.
just like nailed it, which
Mm.
was very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, to like answer more of that question if I can, because it is a tough question.
for
It's
sure.
like, how do you know when something's not working? Man, I mean, yeah, I think the easiest is like compare where you're at to where you were to where you are now, whether that's
Yeah.
views, likes, followers, income,
Yeah.
clients, whatever it is.
Yep.
And then another side to that is like your level of sustainability with content.
Gotcha.
Like oftentimes,
So you're sort of saying like, if you find it, you just can't stick to the plan. It's not the plan for you type thing.
yeah, exactly. Like, you know, this probably has some level of like self-awareness as well. Like if
Yeah.
you're not really too self-aware of like what your goals are, then this might not be an ideal sort of answer to the question.
Yeah.
But if you already feel confident, like I'm the best weight loss coach there ever was.
Mhm.
I'm great at what I do. My clients love me, etc. And you're making the content, and you're like, this is not me. Like every time I turn the camera on, like I don't feel good when I'm editing it. I hate editing it. I hate listening to my voice. Then something is probably off. And I think that might be as important of a metric as all the likes and clients and stuff, if not more important. Because if you see Nick Daza and Justin Mucci here, like they love making content. Like, yeah, sure, sometimes
Yeah.
the mic dies or whatever, and it's a little frustrating, but they love speaking, they love helping people, they love solving the problems.
Cool.
And that has almost every time translated to performing well. When we were in the early days, a lot of my clients, there was like a lot of friction to make the client, and subsequently the videos can perform well. So once
Yep.
there was less friction with the content, not only could we get more volume out and better volume out quickly, but the videos also perform well. So that's actually probably my number one answer is like listen within is this style of content, is what you're saying resonating with you, yes or no, and then
Yep.
use that as sort of your guide to start.
And then like, have you done it for long enough to
Yeah,
get
that's
this
the other
kind of
side.
stuff?
That's the
Yeah.
other side of it. Yeah, yeah. Don't post 2 videos because a YouTuber told you that this video is going to go viral, and then it doesn't go viral, and then quit. You know?
And this is what you call the weave. It all comes back around to that number one thing, that consistency is
Yeah,
the key.
yeah. And it's such a boring answer, but it's boring. But not most people don't do it. So
Well, here's the thing I think, man. I've always found with like elite people, or people who are just doing exceptional things that look boring,
mm,
you know. And it's like we've just unpacked. I don't know how long we're talking, but it's like we've literally just unpacked consistency, and
mhm,
it's like just this full circle.
mm,
And it's often I talked to Carl Kowali once, who's like CrossFit gymnastics,
mm,
and he said when you start gymnastics, it's very simple. You know, you do a plank, so
mm,
there's one joint moving.
mm,
Then it becomes complex. You do a pull up or a muscle up,
mm,
and then it goes back to simplicity, but it's very very difficult because it's an iron cross.
mhm,
And so people mistake simplicity in terms of, you know, just being consistent
mhm.
for the complexity that makes consistency elite.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And the
Yeah.
consistency isn't just on the output; it's also, I would say, on the input, because
Yeah.
you can study all of the output things. Or even you have like the best equipment. You could hire a videographer, you could hire
Yeah.
an editor, you could spend 20K a month on just the most unnecessary things.
Yeah.
But if you're not inputting consistently, meaning inputting from people in your DMs, people in your stories, polls, questions in your stories,
Yeah.
in-person clients, friends, and family feedback on your content. If you're not consistently inputting that,
Yeah.
then you can't have a fighting chance at like outputting what you need. And that comes to metrics as well. Like obviously you don't want to become addicted to, you know, refreshing the followers on your thing. I grew.
Sure.
But that is a metric that's an input tool. And if you
It's
consistently are like, okay, I grew 10 followers this week, and then
Yeah.
last week I grew 50. I wonder, you know, what happened. Using that as a tool, but not
Yeah.
getting obsessed with it.
No, there's a lot of feedback in feedback, you know, and
Yeah.
so like you'll hear people all the time like, bro, and I was talking to Nick almost the other day, he's like, bro, people love my content. Why aren't they buying from me?
Mm.
It's like they don't understand what you do for work, bro. It's like you got set content, giving away all the stuff, but they don't know what the process looks like. So
Yeah.
it's like there's always like the gold is always in the feedback.
Mm.
And 9 times out of 10, it's like it's what you're not doing that is what's going to move you forward, which is very cool.
Yeah, yeah. In like a case like, was that Nick? saying
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah. In a case like that, like I don't know if he has a longer form video kind of breaking down who he is and what he does,
Yeah.
but that would probably be a million times more valuable than just making more and more and more. And it's not that the stuff he's doing isn't working. His
Yeah.
followers are growing, he's getting views, he's getting comments, he's getting DMs.
100%.
But like you're saying, the missing piece is they don't know what he does for work, and they don't know what he does for them. So instead of putting, just hypothetically, if his filming day was Sunday, instead of making 10 more reels that day, maybe he makes 2, and then he puts all of his extra effort onto, I'm going to film a 15-minute YouTube video,
Yeah.
a breakdown who I am, what I do, who I've worked with. That's actually something I've probably told most of my clients that aren't making long form, is like your short form is working, you're getting DMs, you're getting comments, you're getting likes, you're getting people that want to know more, but you're giving them nothing to know more about you. Whether that's a YouTube video, it could be a PDF, it could be an ebook, it could be a call, it could be a voice memo, DM, whatever.
Yeah. There's something called the monetization triangle, and it's very simple. It's like on one side you've got to show your work. What do you actually do? It's like, so you got the value pieces, but then it's also, here's my process, and like make it obvious. And Nick's fear was he was scared to show that because he was like, oh, then I'm giving it away. I'm like, you're giving away Tuesday, bro, of a 20-week program.
100%.
Then the other part is that social proof, and maybe I'll swing back around to this. Then you just got the hand raises, getting people to put their hands up. In terms of the social proof, man, and this is something that, like, how do you turn that into a reel or like, a piece of wall content so that people are actually going to watch it rather than like, here's my client Jenny who lost 20 kilos.
So you're saying testimonials essentially? How do you get?
100%. How do you make it like actually worth consuming?
Yeah, I mean, testimonials as reels are, in my eyes, difficult to put together unless you planned it out from the very beginning. So one page I would highly recommend if you're someone who has a lot of testimonials and continues to get more of them and you want to use them, I would highly recommend checking out the functional patterns page.
Okay.
They are like hands down the best. Basically all their content is testimonials. And the reason they're so good is because they plan ahead. Essentially, they get before footage and pictures and speaking and everything. Because it sucks when you get someone to lose 50 pounds or double their pants, and you're like, oh, we didn't get a video, but right. So check that out. That's huge, and that can be used for reels, and they have success with their reels. But the other side of it is using it on your stories and your story highlights. That's where I've had more success. So you can just speak directly to the camera. You don't need to edit anything. And you would just put the images up on the screen and then create that into a story highlight. And you guys might know this, but you can send highlights to people. So if and when you're in the DMs with someone and they say like, yeah, I broke my XYZ, I don't know if I can come back. You send them the highlight and you're like, yo, check out Sandy on the third slide. She had a very similar story. I think 9 times out of 10, unless you've planned ahead, like Functional Patterns does, the story is going to be the way to do it. But if you do plan ahead, you can make a good reel. The problem is just like trying to make a reel with like a half testimonial. It's just really difficult to get across. The last point I'd say there, carousels are pretty good for testimonials as well. Because like carousels almost never go viral. You can't really go viral with a carousel, but they do show up for your existing audience. And that's typically who you're trying to get on as a client, because they're already consuming your content. So getting them into a carousel that's just got a quick before and after slide. It doesn't even need a video, or you can put music. That's really, really good. And you could even make, if you want to go nuts with it, like you can make a large carousel with a 20 slides. This is perfect for probably weight loss, physique, clearing up skin, reversing aging sort of thing. You can clearly show the before and afters, have a huge carousel, and then have it pinned at the top of your profile. And you can even make a thumbnail that says like client transformations or whatever. That way, when someone visits, they can immediately hit that thing.
For sure. What drives you to master this stuff?
Man, it's a good question. Because honestly, in the early days, I was kind of like, whatever, like I'm just doing this, but it's not really where my heart's at. But what drives me now is the impact it can have. Similar to maybe I wasn't really around when like the .com bubble blew up, but like at the time I've heard, if you had a website, you could have impact, you could have sales, whatever.
For sure.
Social media is kind of that equivalent for now. And all these guys here and thousands and thousands of people all over the world are making huge impacts that I want to elevate to a huge or a bigger audience, whether it's in the health and wellness and fitness space, or personally, like I love the farming, nutrition, kind of returning back to nature and traditional ways of living. So elevating those sort of people as well. And then kind of along that journey, like eventually me having my own business in that sort. It's like I like farming and I want to own land and stuff. So this current sort of endeavor will fund that. And then I hope that that sort of farm and land owning and homesteading will then inspire other people. And like my social media skills, once applied to that farm, that homestead, will then influence more and more people. It's kind of just a network effect of like influence of projects that I believe in.
Fucking sick, man. Like, and when you think of like the traits, maybe like the different types of personalities that you know when you sort of connect with them and you're like, fuck, I'm looking forward to working with this person. Like, who are those sort of people?
Yeah, typically more high energy,
Yeah.
but more important than that, I would say is like the had a hiccup there. Like the depth of the vision.
Yeah.
So
What do you mean by the depth of the vision?
yeah, like
And like, why does that get you excited?
it gets me excited, like if I believe in what they're doing. So again, Justin's just kind of the perfect example. Him being
Yeah.
here, having so much growth, like his vision is to like transform all sorts of athletes, whether they're already pro or they're planning on growing pro, like
Yeah.
breaking world records in
Yeah.
track and field and
Yeah.
lifting and football and basketball and all these things.
Yeah.
Like that's cool. I like sports. I like
Yeah.
training. I like all these things. Like to know that I'm going to have an impact on helping him realize his dream of
Yeah.
helping thousands of athletes is
Yeah.
just fires me up. And then more on the question of like, what do I look for in people? Yeah. So the depth of the vision to me is how easily can they answer questions such as like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? What sort of impact do you want to have in 5 years? Like if they can answer those questions pretty easily,
Yeah.
typically that means the vision is pretty deep. But if they're kind of still, and nothing wrong with it, but if they're kind of still in that stage of like, uh, I don't know, I want to make 10K a month online, then it's like it's a shallower vision for the time being.
For
It's
sure.
just
For sure.
totally fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that really fires me up when they're like, I want to make ACL surgeries no longer exist. Like I want to put the surgeons out of business. And it's like, cool, let's do it.
If you were to like, so let's say 100 people come to you, man, and you're like, I'm gonna wave a magic wand. What would you wave so that these people can get that vision out? And maybe just in terms of like, you when you wave your magic wand, what does that allow people to have?
Good question. Think just kind of with your brand of like removing the handbrakes.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I don't know with this magical wand how it works, but like
Yeah.
if it could remove the handbrakes, that for some is the speaking confidence, for some is just the ability to put up a camera and hit record and things like that.
For
It's
sure.
just it's mainly removing the roadblocks. It's really not adding any attributes. I mean, most people are, if you're listening, you're probably an adult. Like you've developed enough in your life to have a personality, to have a voice, to have an interest,
Some
to
people
have
got personality.
yeah. They're like you've got something to share.
Yeah.
Like whether
Social media, it's hard sometimes.
yeah.
Not much of a personality, but
Yeah.
I still got lots of reach, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. But like like we all have something to share, even if you didn't like go to school for it or something. So it's really to
Yeah.
me, if I could have that magic wand, it's removing the obstacles and it
It's
has
very cool.
absolutely nothing to do with adding anything else.
It's almost like that. Like, you know, if you tell a fish that it's dumb for not being able to climb a tree,
Yeah.
it's like it's that thing, man, of like I believe this too, and I sort of think I was sitting here as like, if I can be the fucking boulder
Mm.
that you throw me in a fucking ocean and I create ripple effect throughout the world
Mhm.
just by like what we've been able to do, that would be fucking amazing. And it's like, you know, I'm uneducated. I know a lot of people are uneducated, but we still have this magic. We have this gift that, like, if we can just, like you said, remove that handbrake, let them have it. It's like, fuck, man, the world's a fucking wicked place.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just removing, and that's probably true for a lot of things. I'd imagine, like with training. It's
Yeah.
or diet's probably the easiest one. It's like it's not you don't need to eat a new superfood berry. You just need to stop eating the donuts. Simple as that.
Nice Mitch Clark. Yeah. Yeah. Nah, that's mad. So, man, when it's all said and done, like 50 years from now, what did they say about Andreas?
Yeah, man. Hmm, that's a good question. Probably it would definitely have to do with like returning to land and nature in some capacity.
Yeah.
My dream is to have land next year and then just build on it. My passion really does lie, or I guess I shouldn't say like my passion is if it's the only one or the number one, but my longest lived passion is construction, physical labor work.
Yeah.
So getting land and just start doing that while running my online business and just set up a basic Wi-Fi thing there, get it done. The impact in 50 years, I mean, I'd love to be known as someone who bought land, you know, fairly young and like did something with the land that was allowed me to have a family that was like more, I guess, free and sovereign in that sort of sector.
Yeah.
And then helping other people do it through social media content. There's a lot of people already doing this. Like, this is how I bought my farm. this is how I homestead, whatever,
For
and
sure.
just be another person that adds to that sort of wave. Like I forget the statistics, but like before World War II, there were like 1 in 3 or 1 in 2 homes had like a home garden where they
Yeah.
grow vegetables, and now it's like
Yeah.
1 in 100
Yeah.
at best. So like making a return to that and like being part of that wave
Yeah.
that helps, even if it's helping like financially in some capacity, like hopefully business does well enough where I'm in a place where I can help others, not just with content, but with more investing with land and whatnot.
Yeah. So it's almost like an answer to that question, like how should we be living?
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I've seen, at least like when
Yeah.
I've traveled a good bit, and like I'm in a more city now. I've been out in like the middle of nowhere
Yeah.
camping and like mountains and
Yeah. Man.
lakes and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
I always feel best over there. I think cities have a place. I
Yeah.
definitely would probably long term would want to spend like 90% out in more naturey, 10% more city.
Yeah.
I do like parts of the city, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's the vision.
Magic, bro. Fucking awesome, man. So where do we find you, brother?
Yeah, so my business Instagram is Real Reels at Real Reels Academy.
Yes.
That's REAL and then REEL.
Yeah. Cool.
The name we're sticking with for now.
Yeah.
And then my personal Instagram is Holistic Gray, DRE. You can message me on either of those.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Something that we normally do, man, and I haven't spoken to you about this, but like, would you have sort of like a free resource PDF or something if they send you like Dr. Dre and your DMs? Like, would you have something you could give them?
Yeah, yeah. So I've got I put them in my school, but I still have a PDF form of my
Yep.
CapCut editing guide. It's like
Yep.
a year old, but it's really, really solid. Like I've probably had
Yeah.
50 plus people use it to learn how to edit reels super, super well.
Yep.
So yeah, you can definitely send it over.
Yeah. Fuck. So DM Holistic Dre or at Reels Academy.
Yeah,
Real Reels
real
Academy.
reels. Yeah.
Yep. DM Dr. Dre and you'll get that PDF from
Yeah,
Shop, brother.
100%. Thank you for
Fucking
having me
awesome,
on.
bro. Awesome.